Are there any deals that you've said no to that now haunt you?
Yeah, there's one.
What should a company look for when saying yes to an investor?
Honestly, I just think a lot of investors hustle companies. They basically never write a check. Like, for example, for me, I just won't take a stake in the business unless I'm writing a check. We're very similar. In the same way I can speak to creators, but then I can also speak to businesses and have these very serious negotiations with multi-billion-dollar companies. I can be in the middle of these two worlds, and I feel like you have that same ability in the sense.
Is this the first podcast you've done with one of the founders of the companies that you invested in?
Yes, I believe so.
Iman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
We're in Lyra's offices in New York. It's
Correct.
been a long time coming. A lot has changed since the last time we spoke.
Indeed.
Is this the first podcast you've done with one of the founders of the companies that you invested in?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, well, I feel very privileged. I think one of the things that I've always admired the most about you, I don't even know if you know you do this, but you can always remember year by year what happened in that year. Mm. And so from say 2019 through now, I would be very curious what you think the big events are in your sort of journey getting from 2019 all the way to here, just to catch us up.
I think as time goes on, one thing I've been able to do is not bite off more than I can chew. And I guess investing in companies is one good example of that.
Yeah.
I have certain friends of mine that have their philosophy is, let me write a 50K check and invest in 10, 15, 20 businesses a year. And, I know nothing about them. It sounds cool. And, that's it, done and dusted. I take a more refined approach, less companies, larger checks, more involvement. And as I said, the reason I say this is over the years, I've evolved from, starting in service-based business, which is, in my opinion, a great business to start and even flourish in your career. It's just a very difficult business to scale. And then from there, I went into starting my first digital product business, then starting my first software company. Software was a very difficult game. And I think after a few years, I started to realize, let me leave this to the professionals and let me invest in the companies instead. We're very fortunate at the main business to have very good cash flows. And I think that's what I mean when I say if I look at my career over the space of the last 10 years, I've been able to evolve and realize, okay, now it's time to move into the next phase and next stage of my career. And that's really what we've done the last 2 years mainly, is take the cash flow from the businesses. I kind of treat myself as my own little fund.
Yes.
We're fortunate to have quite a bit of capital to be working with. And I have, I guess, sort of like a little sphere of influence and a little sphere of where I can be useful to the companies. And that's kind of the area and the domain I invest in.
Would you say that the rocket fuel that sort of propelled all of that over the years has been the growth of your personal brand?
I think personal brand gives you, and I also want to clarify, when I say personal brand, it could be 5,000, 10,000 of highly targeted followers on X or Twitter. I always keep calling it Twitter.
Yes.
I think an intentional personal brand is probably one of the biggest assets that you can have. So for me, having a personal brand and the scale that I've had at was definitely a big push forward. Now, at a certain point, a personal brand in terms of bringing in new business, you get capped because there's only so big a personal brand can get, in my opinion. So we've gotten very good at mastering ads. We're very good at advertising between the various different businesses. One business last month, we spent $4 million on ads and turned that over, many multiple times more. But when I look at personal brand, I look at the benefits outside of direct revenue. So I look at obviously the opportunities to invest in certain businesses, and actually the biggest thing has been talent, the talent that we're able to attract.
Yes.
Globally, which is my favorite, and then in certain businesses, obviously like us here at Lyra, we're looking for people domestically, or yesterday I was at Whop checking out. We just decked out the whole 5th floor.
Yes.
So have half of the 4th floor, took the entire 5th floor.
We'll get there one day.
Yeah, soon.
Soon.
Very soon. And yeah, it's the talent that I'm able to attract even for them. And whether it's them, whether it's Lyra, it's been a big competitive advantage in business.
I 100% agree. I want to put on that thread intentional, because I remember you saying a long time ago you used to play a lot of chess when you were a kid. And although your growth has been great on the personal brand side, I think what is more impressive, and I think you'd agree, is that you decided to do it and then actually did it. It wasn't an accident. And so how do you decide to do it and then do it? Talk to me. How do you do your planning? Do you disappear for a weekend and go journaling and come back with the game plan? Or how do you be intentional? Because there's a lot of people trying to grow and get influence, but it often doesn't work. And it's because they're just making noise. There's no intention behind it. And you've obviously done it very successfully. And so I'd love to know how you actually thought through it.
Yeah, I think you need to look past the views and the likes and the comments and all this sort of stuff and ask, like, what are you trying to accomplish with your personal brand? And you also need to understand, I'm very cognizant of the fact that you can only appeal to so many sides of the market. I'll give you an example. Like, we're beginners and people earlier on in their careers love us. I always say, like, the mid-market, which is, I call it the semi-smart people, don't like us.
Yeah.
And the really smart people love us. Because the really smart people can see how sometimes we dumb things down, and I speak to people at the level that they're at, depending on who I'm talking to. Whereas that middle market, usually they like to use all the fancy big words and overcomplicate things that don't need to be overcomplicated. And the reason I bring that up is because I can't appeal to three markets at the same time. So you need to realize, who are you appealing to? And also between platform to platform, some people see me on TikTok, I don't talk business at all. That's literally just top of funnel, just general wider audience. We have my business channel where I'm very specific and I speak to our ICP at one of the B2B businesses we have, consulting businesses we have, and Whop. Those two businesses are kind of married for our top clients. So the way I speak on there is very different to the way that I speak on TikTok, which is very different to the way I speak on my main YouTube channel, which is very different to the vlog channel. So they all fulfill multiple different purposes. And I will say, having such a broad approach actually doesn't make sense, because it's actually counterintuitive. But for me, I'm optimized for, I like the fact that we can kind of do anything and you can't put us in a box. But that also means that you don't have as strong brand association to one thing, because the person that meets me here compared to here, like, they can know me for so many different things. And they also view me in many different lights. You know, if people are listening to us here and they don't realize, like, you know, we have a pretty moderately successful empire and we own a lot of infrastructure in our industry. Whereas the person that sees me on TikTok is like, oh, I just thought he just, like, I don't know, I've just seen some funny clips or like some entertaining clips. So that's one side of things. And then also your personal brand can evolve as time goes on, because new things, the outcome that you're trying to get out of it might be a little different. I'll give you an example. Even last week, we did a collaboration. There's a gentleman called Eric on YouTube. He has 18 million subscribers. I've known him for a long time. And he was like, hey, are you flying anywhere, you know, soon? I would love to, you know, jump on the plane with you. And, you know, he was recording this whole series, like jumping on celebrities' jets or whatever. So we went to go visit. We have an office in Amsterdam for a business that we invest in called Here's. So I haven't had a chance to go to office yet. So I was like, you know what, on the way back to Dubai, I'll stop off in Amsterdam. So I was like, jump on the plane. He sent me the final cut. And a lot of the cut it wasn't bad at all, but a lot of it was a representation of, like, when I was a little younger and maybe a little less refined. And I just told him, you know, for me personally, I don't mind, but at this stage, I represent what I put out there represents Lyra. What I put out there represents, in that case, you know, we're going to the Here's office. It represents Here's. It represents any other businesses I make public that I have a stake in and ownership in. So that's what I mean about intentionality, because maybe if they put in flashier clips of me in that moment, maybe that would have appealed more to his audience, because it is a sort of a wider audience. So technically that would have been better, because they would have been like, oh, this guy's this has this, etc. But that's not intentional to what I want my brand to be and the main things that we're talking about today. And even earlier this year, we made a decision where, like, we know how to crank the views better than anyone else. We've done it on all these different platforms, but we decided, okay, we kept growing our market and we actually want to slim down now. So we decided to scale it back slightly, and we knew on purpose we'd get less views, and we get less broad reach, but that benefited the businesses a bit better.
While you were saying that, all I was thinking is there's so many parallels to that and product, right? Really, personal brand being your product. Because what I was really trying to ask is, what in your mind is Iman's design language? So at Lyra, we spend a lot of energy, resources, and time on design. Because our product, we hope, is going to be used by millions of people. design, the way it feels, the way it looks, it matters more than anything. But you have to be very intentional. Round buttons is friendly and playful. If you make it square, it goes super corporate. And so you have to think a lot about the way things look. And with personal brand, I hear people speak about like the content pillars. What is Iman's design language?
It's not actually particularly smart, but the way that we do it, and I don't recommend this for people, the way that I do it is it's very different platform to platform. So one of the things that is interesting about us is we, in one moment, we're visiting our new 5th floor offices in Whop, and then the night before we're like meeting up with creators with millions and millions of followers, and we know how to speak both languages. Like we know how to, tomorrow we're going in and there's an hour-long meeting that I want to have about a particular part of strategy for 2026, and that's like a very serious like corporate level meeting that we're having. But then I'm also then later on in the day having like a creator coming in and kind of like being a part of the culture, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the reason I say that is I wouldn't say that I have a particular content pillar or this or that. Like we have one rule, which I guess just don't be lame. Like,
yes.
Like that's kind of our big thing is like whatever we do, I just don't want to do it in a lame way, and I don't want to do it in like a cookie cutter way. And most importantly, I just want to do it in a way that's like truthful and honest to us. Because I think it comes across. I think one of the big feedback that we've gotten from a lot of people is like, it doesn't look like you guys are trying. And I think that's actually, I don't even know if you even noticed, like even literally right before this, Alex was like, oh, let's record, like, what are we doing? And I was like, bro, when do we ever like record what we're doing?
Literally.
Like I was like, bro, we just roll the fucking camera.
Yeah,
like,
we had no preparation. We just sat down.
So I was like, oh, should we say what we're doing? And I was like, wait, we actually never do that.
Yeah.
Like, and I kind of prefer that way. I'd rather you feel like you're looking into our life rather than like we're doing things for the camera or X, Y, Z. And I think that sincerity comes across, or at least I hope it does.
Yeah. And then I want to talk more on the VC fund thing you mentioned. So I know that this has become something that you've amplified lately is build a cash flow business, generate revenue, and then become your own VC fund. At what stage do you think that makes sense to do? Because a lot of people in info do really well, and a lot of them want to get into SaaS. And I think a lot of them are trying to build it themselves rather than investing. And when we were in Dubai, one of the things you said to me is that comes with a trade-off in lifestyle. And a lot of people get stuck in the lifestyle. And I'd love to know your thoughts on who is that for, who is it not for, at what point should you be investing, and sort of why that has become what you now think is, correct me if I'm wrong, the best playbook is cash flow and then become your own fund.
I think for us, cash flow and become your own fund has been a smart path to go down. But I said, I live in this very funny place where we're almost like player, coach, owner. So like we just broke the records again on Whop for, the most amount of volume processed in 1 hour, 24 hours, 7 days, and 30 days.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yep.
So that's the second time this year we've processed almost $2 billion on Whop. So, there's some heavy hitters on there. So we're in this industry playing, but then we're also technically coaches because we have a B2B company. We bought an old legacy business called consultant.com. And yeah, we just advise people in the space. Usually it's some of our top clients that are processing the most on Whop, work with that business. And then we're also owners in the infrastructure layer because, the very serious people in our industry are processing all their payments on Whop. We do a myriad of things, but that is the thing where like no one even comes close to us in that domain. So the reason I say that is like I've slaw into this very funny situation where we have a lot of customers and we have a lot of pull in this industry. And, one of the big things that we've been doing is we have so many customers coming into our sort of broad market product called Monetize. So, we have about 20-ish thousand customers a year. And what we've started doing is we started going to businesses and striking up licensing deals, software businesses. So we have licensing deals. Now we get wholesale rates because we're bulk buying year up front. But we're also, obviously there's certain things I can't say on camera, but there's businesses that we're in negotiations with right now to take a stake in them. And we're writing a multi-million-dollar a year licensing check to them. So that adds obviously quite a bit to their enterprise value. Yeah. And based on that prerequisite and based on that condition, we get very favorable investment terms. So we're in this very interesting position where we actually have all the customers. So with that specific business, it's 5 million a year that I'm spending to have all of our customers, all 20,000 customers a year that come in, a 1-year subscription to that specific plan. It's interesting because we have the cash flow coming in here, but then we also have the enterprise value, and they're very happy because it's very rare that you have a almost distribution partner that's going to bring you 20,000 customers prepaid upfront for a year, and past that year they keep 100% of year 2, 3, 4, 5. Any upsells, downsells, cross sells, they keep 100% of. So it's we found this very like interesting lane, right? Because they're going to spend all that money. So I won't get into specifics of it, but that extra margin, you know, the wholesale rate that we negotiated, they're spending that money on Meta anyways. And we're a clean wire where we're their payment processing fees, their refunds, their disputes, and their advertising costs. And we're porting in very educated users, right? And high intent users, because these aren't like free trial users. They've paid a lot of money. They get it for a year up front. It's part of a larger training and a larger ecosystem. So it's just like a very unique thing that I haven't really seen any other people do.
No, I mean, I'll give it to you because I remember you having that conversation with me. And at first I was like, this is a completely new model. So I have literally nothing to benchmark it to. But it makes sense because if you're choosing correct products, your customers are getting enormous amount of value bundled together at a price point they wouldn't otherwise get. The businesses are getting a volume of feedback that would be so expensive to acquire. And also the customers wouldn't be incentivized to care. And obviously also you're getting the increase in your enterprise value, which is good for you if you're an investor, but also good for the business. And so it's a really good win all around, as long as you choose the right products.
Correct.
And I guess that would be another question for me is when you are looking at making an investment, because I imagine there's a lot of deal flow, there's a lot of potential that comes across your table. What do you look for? Is it the founder you're evaluating or is it the business?
I'll be honest, in Lyra's specific case, it was definitely you, the founder. All bets were on you.
Yeah, tell me more.
Which I think is panned out quite nicely so far. I think you're in a very, funnily enough, I see a lot of, we're very similar. And what I mean by that is I feel like you, in the same way I can speak to creators and YouTubers and like personalities, right? But then I can also speak to businesses and have these very serious negotiations with multi-billion-dollar companies when it comes to, for example, in this case, your licensing deal and going, all right, at the end of it, of course, they're going, okay, what's the catch? You're bringing us all these customers. And I'm like, well, of course I expect terms that not other people, because it goes beyond the strategic. The amount of value I'm actually bringing to business is just, there's very few people that can do that on day one, guaranteed. So I can be in the middle of these two worlds, and I feel like you have that same ability in the sense you can be in the world of speaking to devs, but then also raising. Like you're very good at doing both. Whereas without getting into specifics, there's certain businesses where I can tell the person who is in these businesses I'm invested in, I wouldn't really trust that individual to raise because they just don't really know they don't have that as same inspiring nature, but that's also why they're great product people. I guess basically what I'm trying to say is you're a great product person, but people person as well. And that's a very hard combination to find. A lot of times people who are so fixated and obsessed about product, they have a very difficult time speaking to institutions and raising and playing that other side. So I think that's what's, something that's very, very unique about you is you can put you in any room and you know how to move and operate.
No, I appreciate that. I think you pointed out that is like my edge. And I think I've been doing it by accident, but I think when you said it very succinctly, that really like solidified it for me. So I appreciate that. For those who don't know, when you invested, the company is actually called Seeking Sigma.
Correct.
So
yes.
We've changed a lot. We've changed the logo. We've had a lot of iterations between
then and there. Changes.
Yeah, there's been a lot. I'd love to know what makes you the most excited about Lyra now? Like, I know it's changed many times. I think we've tried to keep the core thesis the same. And I think we've also just gotten bolder, right? We've started taking on bigger and bigger and bigger dragons. What now makes you the most excited about it?
As you said, it's a much bigger vision from where if in full transparency, when I was Seeking Sigma, I invested because it's you. The product in of itself, it was an inspiring product, but it wasn't a let's change the world kind of product. And I feel like now we're going into territory where it's like, okay, it's not going to be 20,000 to 30,000 enterprise businesses that are like, okay, this is a great product. This improves our efficiency by 43%. And because of that, it's a XYZ, however much size business. Now it's like okay, we want to, you said earlier, you want millions of people using Lyra. I actually think the number is hundreds of millions that should be using Lyra. And that's a much bigger thing, and that's a much bigger market, which I'm a fan of personally.
Yeah.
That's a much bigger market. It's a much bigger mission. It's far more exciting. And the God's honest truth is there are certain softwares and certain tools that we even use ourselves or historically have used, where I feel like they become the standard, but I don't know if they're developing at the rate where they should remain the standard. And what I mean by that is Zoom is one of them. Like, historically, we've used Zoom up until obviously very recently. Do I think that do I use the product and think this is incredible, out of this world? Not really, but it's just good enough to exist. If that makes sense. And Slack, like we use Slack. Do I think Slack is revolutionary? And every time that I use the product, I go, wow, this is incredible. Not really, but it's just kind of become the standard. So I feel like that is one segment of the market where the market just kind of accepted the standard, and I don't think there's been enough to move things forward. And especially with how fast AI is moving and how much it's increasing efficiency, I've seen just in that specific domain, it hasn't been reflected, and there hasn't been enough progression, enough advancement. So Zoom is probably, has been one of our most used tools in terms of like usage time. I would actually say it's probably the most used tool because of between the businesses, how many meetings are running. Like I could go in any of the businesses right now, there's at least 7 meetings running on Zoom between various different departments. The product in of itself, not to bash Zoom, whether it's Zoom or Google Meets, I'm just saying that specific, for that specific use case, I just don't think there's enough being done to move things forward.
I agree. And I think one of the things that has surprised me is this sheer volume of time that humans spend in these platforms. I think, you can build a lot of cool softwares. Very few, literally, people spend a large proportion of their week in that little window. And that's why design is so important. But I actually wanted to come back to another point. So one of the things we've worked extremely hard on with Lyra is to actually reduce our pricing. So originally, we were quite expensive. And I remember, we had our discussion about you coming on board. And I must also give it to you. I think you're one of the best negotiators. You're extremely aggressive on your terms. But you pointed out the price point. And that was because of this mass market thing. And we over time have come to agree on that. And we're working harder to suppress that. But at the time you said something and it stuck with me. You said you only invest in businesses where you have an advantage. And as an investor, I'd like to hear, again, you told me then, but for the audience, what do you think your advantage is?
Let's say, for example, in the context of Lyra, now as of the recent advancements and the new change in pricing, however forward, I guess you could say I was, and however forward I was with the value I bring to the table, I think if we had the current pricing back then, I would have been honestly 5 times even more forward. Yes. Because the fact of the matter is, by 2026, if everything keeps going in the track that will go, 20,000 of my customers will have access to Lyra, right? And because they're going to have to pay for other solutions regardless. And these other solutions, as I said, to me, the market currently as it stands right now in this market are very mediocre. And also in that business where basically we bundle a bunch of my softwares that either I own, many tools we create, or we do licensing deals. These people are on online communication and online meetings constantly. So that's a big thing that we bring to the table. And then also on the flip side of things, we're in a very fortunate position where our customers are very patient with us. So for example, we can deploy, when the time comes, we can deploy Lyra to a small subsection of our customer base and then wider and wider and wider. And we're in a very fortunate position where if something goes wrong, no one's upset. They're very patient with us. And it's very rare to, this year, we'll get about 20,000 new customers, but we have had almost 100,000 customers. So to have that much feedback, and what's interesting is that because we're owners and players in a lot of these industries, so in the same way like Lyra, owners, but then also end users, like hardcore end users, a lot of times we're guinea pigs for a lot of the businesses that we invest in. So before it even gets to our customers, we're guinea pigs as of right now for Lyra, right? And if something happens or breaks with us, it's not that big of an issue. If it happens for one of our enterprise users, it can cause big issues. So it's very rare that you have an investor can come in and they're like your research and development, as in like, hey, break things and we're cool with it. Like we're fine. Test things out, put out a new launch. And not only that, like we're such heavy users of it. Like it's not like, maybe 5 people in the team use it. Like we're your R&D, but if you want it to be, we can turn on a tap and we could have 100,000 people be your R&D. And I said, these people aren't really pissed off because we have so much goodwill with our customers, where if something breaks, like they're maybe a little annoyed, but it's not going to be like absolutely detrimental to the business. So not only do you have R&D, you also have distribution on 2 fronts. You have distribution in the sense of like, because there's some businesses that I go to, like, that one example, there were about, hopefully things should go across the line soon with that $5 million a year licensing deal, where like I bring distribution in the sense I have a massive audience, but like some businesses weight that higher than other businesses. For some businesses, they're like, yeah, that's cool, but there's nothing tangible. So I bring distribution in 2 cents. For example, with Lyra, where we can onboard all these customers and do a wholesale rate and do a licensing deal, but then also, we have a massive audience and we can bring awareness. The other day we had Product Hunt and we're able to put that out to, hundreds of thousands of people, reach hundreds of thousands of people on the day just from one story. We're able to reach, when I put out hiring posts for some of the other businesses, we've had, just from my Instagram story, we've had over 150,000 people apply to work at one of the businesses, which is insane.
Yes.
Right. So that is my edge. Now there's certain businesses that I go to, I speak to, I just don't really like, there's not much I can do for them. If you gave me let's say like a massive restaurant chain, maybe they might value my audience, but I just don't think that's going to be a big enough competitive advantage. And also, like, I wouldn't even want to command certain terms with them or request certain terms, because I just wouldn't feel like I bring enough to the table. When you're investing in a company, we have a long-term relationship. You want to feel good about it. And it's a long-term partnership and you're working together for a very long time. And everyone wants to feel like they walk away with happy with the way things panned out, basically.
I'll also give you that like commandment, because I've dealt with a lot of LPs now and a lot of investors. And one of the things I've noticed about you is you're not afraid to not invest because you just don't think you can actually help. Like you can't actually drive value. And when we were speaking, the thing that excited me most was, yes, you guys are power users and you have a really strong team, which can give feedback itself, the customers as well. But the fact that we have that virality loop built into the product. And so those 20,000 customers is actually 100,000 if we do our job right. And that's the million customers. And that's, again, one of the big value unlocks with our product. But for that to be right, we need to master that design. I'd love to flip the question around now. What should a company look for when saying yes to an investor? Like when I was evaluating you, what do you think I should have been thinking?
Honestly, I just think a lot of investors hustle companies, and especially like earlier stage companies. And what I mean by that is, like, there's a company right now that we're looking at taking a stake in, and without getting into specifics, like I see this a lot right now. I see a lot of basically family offices or funds, they basically never write a check. Like, for example, for me, like, I have never taken a stake in a business. I just won't take a stake in the business unless I'm writing a check. Now, it could be a check at favorable terms, because also I think it needs to be fair, and the value I bring to the table, if I do bring value to the table, needs to be represented correctly. But like, I see it a lot with sometimes as well, like well-known people. I think, in my opinion, maybe taking advantage of newer businesses and saying, I bring X exposure and I bring, but like, for me, if going back to our restaurant example, or for me going back to, there's businesses, like there was a napkin advertising business and they want me to get involved. And I'm just like, to be honest, I know I have some exposure and I have like literally tens of millions of followers between platforms, but like, I just don't know if that's like valuable enough. Like, and I wouldn't even want to like pretend if that's like, I don't know how that converts, you know? Or I don't know what's a business that we could, like there was an online bank that wanted me to invest in them. I just didn't know how much I could bring to the table in that case. And the reason I bring up this whole thing is I think just be very careful, because there's some investors who are very good at pitching themselves.
Yes.
But it's like pitch, okay, cool, deals, signed, done, XYZ, this, that. And it's like crickets after that. And I would just be very careful, or at least have some sort of benchmarks where things unlock, or have some, like, just protect yourself as a business. And I know especially at the beginning, it's easy to get like wowed by certain people. As I said, I've seen it unfortunately a lot, in my opinion, where some people of influence take advantage of that. And so even with this business, they're like, yeah, this person, they want 30%, and there's no real deliverables. I'm like, but what are they actually like? They're not even putting any money in. And you know, like I said, I know many, many well-known individuals that don't write checks. Never. They're just like, oh, I'm such and such, so give me 10% of your business or 25% of your business, and I'll help you grow. And it's like, what does that mean? Like, help you? What does that actually tangibly mean? Like, what are you getting?
Put some skin in the game as well.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, it's just, I get it. It's early stage, and I'm all for. I think you should give up. I think you should give up equity in your company, because it's much better to have a smaller piece of a much larger pie. But always ask yourself, if this person does what they say they're going to do at a $10 million valuation, $100 million valuation, $1 billion valuation, because right now 8% or 12% or 15%, or, oh, you know, yeah, I'll give them 20% because they sit, you know, they have a lot of YouTube subscribers and they say they could help grow my business. Like, that might seem like, oh, whatever, it's just 20%. But then let's say things do go incredibly well, you know, and it's a $1 billion valuation, is like one call a month. Like, would you have felt good about that? Now, maybe the answer is yes. If the answer is yes, like, great, go for it. But I just see a lot of people, unfortunately, sometimes get a little too romantic, let's say, about their investors, and they start to build fantasies in their mind of what could happen. But I think you always just need to come into in a very skeptical, with skeptical lens. And if it still makes sense at the end of that, then that's great.
And I agree with you by looking at sort of their history and the companies they've been with in the past, and just asking, like, have they actually delivered on such and such, or do they break promises?
Reference. Just ask for some simple references, yeah.
And a lot of people, I think we all spoke about this, they don't make public the companies that they invest in. And so it's really hard to do any of that. That's generally how you know that there's usually a problem there. Are there any deals that you've said no to that now haunt you?
Yeah, there's one. It's funny actually. In the car, it came to mind. That's why I thought of it so quick. Because I gave this product to an associate of mine, and he was like, "Oh, my wife loves it. She says it's great." There's a company called Cadence. A friend of mine, George Heaton, that owns Represent, which is him, and other incredible entrepreneur, Ross. They came to me about 2 years ago. I remember I was in LA, and they were like, "Hey, we have this product. We want you to come in as a third partner, and would have owned a third of the company. We want you to come in as a third partner, do what you do, XYZ, this, that." And I was like, "Guys, I would absolutely love to, but I literally, if you told me 6 weeks before, I would have been down. But I literally just produced, it was either 500,000 or 1 million cans of pretty much the exact same product with 80 milligrams of caffeine. It was like electrolytes, sparkling water with electrolytes in a can."
Right. This was big day.
Yes, correct. Big day.
Yeah.
And yeah, long story short, the businesses were, and even, the first 6 months, even up until the first 6 months, we were at the same revenue mark, first 9 months even. And, Ross is an absolute superstar. He's a genius, very, very good on the distribution side of things.
Yes.
And the business is worth about 100 mil now. That definitely, that's one that I can think of in terms of, I guess not so much investing. There was, when I was 18, do you know Oura Ring?
I do, yeah. I usually have one on, actually.
Oh, amazing. They were a client of mine at my agency, at my advertising agency.
Yeah.
And I was 18 years old, and I had this fixation with having a client that I charged $5,000 a month. 5 figures a month to. So I remember I priced it at 7,800 pounds, because with the conversions back then, that equaled just a tip over $10,000.
Yes.
So it was my 5 figure a month retainer.
Big win.
Well, yes, yes and no. So back then, the CEO was a gentleman called Harpreet, and he was like, "Listen, we can either offer you equivalent stock, like equity, or we'll pay your fee." I was 18 and dumb and young at the time, and I didn't really know what that could mean.
Yeah.
And yeah, long story short, I think we only worked together for 9 months. So I, whatever the agency, like I made 90K. I think if stock equivalent of now, because obviously they've grown a lot in 7 years, I think that probably would have been $1 million a month payday for 9 months. It would have been equivalent to about $9 million.
I know they just crossed like 11 billion or something.
Yeah.
So it would have been a big number.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess those are two examples. And to me, these are important learning lessons. So like that, when I was 18, that taught me the value of, going back to unfortunately, a lot of people in my industry. And I feel like almost like an uncle sometimes to a lot of people in my industry, because I'm always telling them like, put away money safely, invest, get to whatever your number is with just safe investments. After that, let's think a little bigger, let's go a little bigger. I'm sure there's some infrastructure plays that you can have in your market. I'm sure there's some ownership, there's some tool you and all your customers use that you can have a stake of, you can have ownership. Just let's think a little bigger than this. And I always kind of try to drill that into people in the info industry and the digital product industry, because the info industry and digital product industry is actually a very interesting market, because it's the only business I've ever found where you make the most money in the first 5 years. Like the first 5 years is the easiest. And in the first 5 years, the info digital product business is one of the easiest businesses in the world. And after 5 years, I'm not joking, it's the most difficult business in the world. And it's the complete opposite. Now, we have, that business has been around for 8 or 9 years now. And it's been every single year we've grown year on year in profit. There's not a single other business in the world, info business, digital product business that's done that. And I can tell you it's a super difficult business to be in. So that's why I tell a lot of these guys, I'm like, guys and girls, let's think a little bigger. Like, how are you going to own equity, ownership, have stakes in businesses? And a lot of that was, for example, learning lessons from Aura. I was like, oh, idiot, this can actually amount to something very big in the future. So think a little bigger. The cadence example actually taught me a very important lesson. And that's probably, one of the reasons. It was actually about 2 years ago that I started taking investing very seriously, because I realized at this stage of my career, I have no interest in building $1 billion company from the ground up myself. I would much rather, my whole game and what I like to do is I like to own 5 to 30% of businesses. And if you change CRM, I don't want to know about it. You don't need to tell me. Okay. I don't want to micromanage, know every part of the business. Now, when we need to come in and we need to make very strategic decisions, and we need to make product decisions, or there's something that you want to, before you want to roll it out to the public, you want my team, because without getting into specifics, there's been certain businesses that we have, we have ownership in, and we have if the public ever saw that product, it would have been game over for us, because it was that abysmal. There was actually a situation in August, I won't get into which company or the specifics, it was bad. Now the product now at this stage, or that specific feature, is I don't even think we couldn't live without it. It's been such a massive game changer, but it was a month of pain, and it was also a very important function of someone's business. So it was something that's very important. Is that's where I think we've become very wise now, because of some of these previous failures, where we understand where are we most valuable and where do we like to sit. And as I said, that cadence example is sometimes it's just very important. Like Ross is a superstar in the same way I view you as a superstar. And sometimes it's better to go, okay, I just want a smaller piece of this. You're the superstar. I know that come hell or high water, you will figure it out. And I am betting 100% on you to be successful. And going back to your earlier questions, sometimes I do look at product, and sometimes I weight more towards product, and sometimes I weight more towards the founder. You always have to take the founder into account, and that's always a big portion of it. But I'll be honest, in Lyra, or back then Seeking Sigma's case, it was 100% weighted because it was pre-product.
Yeah, we had nothing. We had a logo.
Yeah, so it was 100% weighted to you, and 0 to the product. And then sometimes it's more product, less founder, and it just depends on the size of the company.
It's interesting because I spend a lot of my time having the same conversation, but with employees, because there's always a trade-off between cash and between equity. And I always look at it and I'm like, you're going to get really good cash compensation just because that's what we do. We'll benchmark it to New York, so it's going to be great. But really, the value is in the equity. And I guess the question there is like, do you believe that it's going to be worth X? Because that's really the overriding factor. And so when you speak to some of your portfolio companies and you sort of talk them through that, I love to know sort of if I was hiring someone and having that conversation, how would you sort of get them across the line of seeing that value? Is it the belief in the founder, the business? Because obviously, like if, traction's there, they're breaking records after records, that's a lot easier than in the early days when there's a logo and a product and maybe a Loom video, that's all there really is, but you still need incredible people. How would you sort of approach that? Or like what advice would you give to founders?
Yeah, as you said, it just depends on the stage that you're at, because if you have the product and the growth of the business is the proof point, right? So let's say, like a Whop, because we referenced them already. Like we've grown since our last round in June 2024, we've grown 600%, and our last round was 600%, and our last round was at an $800 million valuation. In terms of a company of that size, growing 5 to 10% month on month is like, it's insane. Like it's crazy. And you can always point to that and go, okay, whether you believe in the founders or not, that's a different story. But like that in of itself is such a crazy proof point. And that's like, you can't dispute that. And there's certain businesses where, even me, there's certain businesses I look at and I'm like, I don't think the business is that great, or maybe I don't even like the founder that much, or I don't believe that much in the founder, but the growth of the business, you just can't dispute it. So when you're hiring talent or trying to bring talent on point, it doesn't get much easier than that. Unfortunately, if you don't have that, and you don't have that track record, to me, it really just comes down to founder, and that's it. And, even though in some of my businesses it's different, I think my team, I am not numb to the fact at all that a lot of my people in my businesses can go get higher paying jobs elsewhere like that tomorrow. But they believe in me, and they believe in me as the captain of the ship will steer us in the right direction. But that also takes time. So I think if you are hiring and you're trying to bring incredible talent on board, it can't be a one touch point thing. It's going to be, you're going to have to sell yourself.
Yes.
Later down the line, they will have to sell themselves to you. But I think people think just because you're paying someone salary or you're offering them a great compensation plan that all of a sudden they're going to be falling at your feet. No, like great talent will also make a lot of money, and they're not. Yes. They know that. Okay, so your comp plan isn't going to interest them. And by the way, someone else might have a stronger comp plan than you have. That doesn't mean that will interest them either. I think really it comes down to the culture. Do they like the culture they work with? And by the way, there's certain companies where like, I don't like their culture personally, but that's a personal thing. But everyone in there loves their culture. So yes. Culture is also, of course, you're going to attract people that are like you. So it comes down to your culture. It comes down to the competence of the founder and the respect that people have for the founder. Because I also think this is a bit hard to know, but I see, unfortunately, and by the way, this is coming from someone like, I would say from 2019 to 2022, I was a lifestyle entrepreneur. And I openly say that, like I was playing at 70% of my potential. And when you're a lifestyle entrepreneur, you can't have the best talent in the world. And you can't have people that, even though they could go make 3 times as much money here tomorrow, they're going to say, you know what, I'm not going to do that because I see longer potential staying in this organization. So that's a hard thing to know from the beginning, because unfortunately I've seen it many a time where people, start having some success, and then unfortunately they think that their PA can do everything. Yes. Or, you want to speak to me, you have to go through multiple chains of command. And now like I'm paying everyone's salary so I can go home at 5 or 6 p.m. Like I don't need to be the last one to leave the office and the first one in. But unfortunately that's a bit hard, because you never know how people are going to react when they have that success.
I also think there's like very different company cultures for different products, different age brackets. Like you can see this, I think Lyra and maybe some of the other companies also just very different cultures. Doesn't mean one is better. It just means they're different. And I agree with you on the founder point. I actually wanted to talk more about that because, so you travel a lot with your team and they're all like excellent at what they do. and you also live with some of your team, which is very different than a lot of founders do. Like very different. And was that intentional, or because you grew up, you've lived by yourself. I know you told me you like your personal space, but you seem to have given that up. And so was that intentional? Do you recommend that? Because I agree. I think one of the things you're the best at is building like strong culture and attracting like great people who want to stay and work with you. But that's very hard to do. Like you can build a great product, you can get traction, whatever, but again, I agree, the best people make a lot of money very quickly, and they know that they will always make more. They're not staying for that, especially because I think there's very big diminishing returns. So how do you like do that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I guess there's a couple of nuances there. First things first is the way you manage a team is very different depending on age demographic as well, and that's something that is a bigger issue because most of the people that I work with are in their 20s or 30s, and I would say majority of them as it currently stands, don't have a wife or kids. Once you have a wife or kids, the likeliness of someone leaving is substantially lower, and their willingness to jump from organization to organization is also substantially lower because they have a sense of responsibility. Whereas, when you're hiring a 28 or 29-year-old on the basis, if they don't have a family, they're like, oh, well, screw it, like whatever, even if I'm not making income for a few months, it doesn't matter because I don't have a wife, kids, and they can opportunity hop from opportunity to opportunity. So that's actually something that's made it, I guess, even more impressive how I've been able to keep talent. And also in my world, my team will be sitting in on meetings and we're talking about like when we're looking at the numbers and we're like, okay, in the last 30 days, people have made $179 million, earned $179 million on Whop. And they're like, wait, but that's like an everyday person. I could make that kind of money. So that makes it even more difficult to keep people around. So with all that being said, from business to business, it's very different. Okay. So obviously with Lyra, we're only looking for talent here domestically. People that are willing to move to the New York office. And that brings some constraints, some geographical constraints. In my other businesses, I've always said like my dying wish is personally to have an office. But for us right now, we have offices with companies that we have ownership in. And that works for us. But in terms of like the digital product business, which is basically like the center point of this whole thing, it gives us the funds, the distribution, the users, all this sort of stuff. Our big advantage is global talent. So that's one thing we've been able to do really well. If we need marketers, we're going to Brazil. If we need customer success, product-facing people, we're going to South Africa. That's been probably the best in the world.
Yes, we're good at that.
So yeah, you guys are great at product.
Yeah, we are. Try our best.
And over, combing through literally 100,000 plus applications, we have found certain pockets of the world where talent is better, and we've spotted patterns. I don't. Sometimes people will tell me that, oh, you shouldn't generalize people. And I'm like, listen, for me, it's just pattern spotting. So when you've spoken to so many people and when you've done so much hiring, you start to spot patterns and you pick up that, okay, South Africans have this sort of work culture and this sort of work ethic. Brazilians have this sort of work ethic, work culture. Americans have this sort of work culture, work ethic. Spanish people generally, and these are generalizations. Generalizations. Now, not all generalizations are true, but it does generally help you start to understand, okay, cool, this person fits into this criteria, this person fits into this criteria. When it comes to building a good company culture, basically what I'm very good at is I understand there's some people that are, I had this one gentleman I've been working, we've been working together for 8 years, and he calls it a lifer. There's some people who are lifers, and as in like they'll stay at the company for life, and there's some people we hire and I know they're not going to be lifers. And I know that because of number one, their role, and I'm not emotional about it. Like for example, customer support. There's only so much you can evolve in customer support. And it's a role. I would love to have someone in customer support for 10 years, but it's a role generally that has a higher churn rate, especially because of our age demographic. Now, if our average age demographic was 40 plus, even if they stay in customer support, generally people who are above the age of 40, they're less likely to hop from opportunity to opportunity and job to job. In our 25 to 35, it's very common. So I just know that the life cycle of that person, it's not me, by the way, it's them, is going to be small. And I'm not upset about it either as well. Another example is sales reps. sales reps also have the same thing, usually a 2-year life cycle. And that's because they need to feel like they're growing. And it's funny, even though they could be making substantially more money as every month goes by, it's got nothing to do with the money. I can see it very clearly where they make 3 times as much money, yet they're unhappy. And it's because they don't feel like they're growing and evolving and moving, and they don't have a new challenge.
Do you think that's just because they're competitive?
I think so, yeah.
And so that's actually another like observation I've had sort of spending time with you over the years is I genuinely think you don't care about the money. No. I think you are literally just one of the most competitive people I know who literally just wants to win. And I remember you not so long ago, you were on holiday somewhere, I think Spain, and you left early just because you had too much like work on your mind. And probably it was an extremely nice, extravagant place, an amazing holiday. And you left that to go back and sit and work. Very few people would do that at that level. And when it comes to company culture, I think that that's actually what drives your companies is that like competitiveness to win, to grow. Because if you're competing, you're by definition always just getting better and better and better. And I actually think that that's the one thing that you like have at your core and that you instill in your companies. Would you agree with that?
I think that's correct. And that's why, as I said, going back, if this was 5 years ago, I wouldn't be able to attract and keep the talent that I have, because the thing is, I do genuinely in my core believe there's a certain level of your team needs to look at you and go, there's a reason he's in that position. And if they don't, I think there's resentment that builds because they go, wait, why is, as the leader of this company, why are we not following orders per se, but why is this individual generally steering the direction? But also, I guess this comes into like also company culture, because some companies and even companies we invest in that I actually don't believe, I don't agree with this at all, have a flat org and they're a little too, this person say is equal to this person say, which I don't believe in at all. My opinion in life is everyone deserves an opinion, not everyone deserves a say. And what I mean by that is I think I'm allowed an opinion on everything, but there's certain things where my opinion, quite frankly, is a little irrelevant because it's not backed up by any sort of credentials. So whatever, that's a separate discussion of like how you run your company. But in our companies, the way that, or the ones that I'm majority owners in, I believe that your team needs to look at you and have the respect and go, you know what, there's a reason this individual's in the position that he is. And I know why I can't take a spot, because I think no matter how, I think it is only human nature to look at someone and compare yourself. And I think this is why I went back to that founder thing. And you are correct. Like Jenny, I was very fortunate multiple times to hit a number where I kind of promised myself I would take a few years off, but that never panned out.
Yeah, here we are.
Here we are. So for me, Jenny, I really don't do it for the money. I do it for the love of the game. And I do it because I love the people that I work with. And I think your team needs to look at you and go, unequivocally, without a doubt, there's a reason why this person is in the position that they are. And I don't think you can be a lifestyle entrepreneur. I think, even maybe some people have this wrong assumption of me that I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur. It's unfortunate. There's a lot of stuff that I just cannot put online. Like most people don't see my actual day-to-day life, or maybe they only know me, going back to the earlier conversation, they only know me for the fun side of my life, which is like 1% of my life. They don't know me for the other portions of my life.
I think people would be shocked at how much you know about the business side and how much work you actually do there.
I'm very involved, yeah.
Literally, yeah.
And as I said, I love it. And I think maybe I know the day that I slow down, as this might sound horrible to some people who are in the work-life balance camp, which I don't believe in. I think it might be a little horrifying to some people, but I think part of it's a bit of a fear that I know that if I do slow down, the team will sense it, and I think they lose a sense of respect for you. I really do, because they go, you know what, maybe I could do what this guy does. Yeah. And then everything that they're hearing and all these opportunities that they're seeing, and they're like, oh, you know what, maybe I do go take this position in another company, or you know what, and take this promotion or this raise or this, higher starting salary, or maybe I go do my own thing. But when they're in our organization and they can see the growth of the organization, and they know that, you know what, I'm killing myself, but the person who's above me, and it's not just the leader itself, it's also all the C-suite, I think, need to follow the exact same thing. You can't ever ask something of someone if you're not willing to do it yourself. And you can't ask another person to give 100% if you're not going to give 110%. So I think maybe that's also one of the reasons, is a bit of fear, knowing that if I'm not there to steer the ship, and then maybe if the team does smell a bit of complacency, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. I think there's a bit of fear I have around that.
I think that's so true. And I think that's why founder mode has become so popular. And you see that. I think Zuckerberg's probably one of the best examples. It's a super aggressive founder. All right. I want to end off with just going into a rapid round of questions. So let's start with New York versus London. Give me your opinion.
New York to make money, London to spend money.
Top 3 principles for life.
Oof. Deep one. Be pessimistic, and if it still makes sense, do it.
Yeah.
That served me pretty well. It's not about what you do, it's about who you do it with. I guess just radical self-awareness of where you are in life and what you're capable of. I think a lot of people romanticize that they're, as horrible as it sounds, capable of a lot more than they are in that given moment.
Yeah.
I'm very aware of my shortcomings, and there's certain things I'm like, I actually just don't have that in the locker right now.
Oh, fair enough. And I think it shows your self-awareness to say that as well. So same question with a bit more fun. Top 3 rules for dating.
Oof. Top 3 rules for dating. Number 1, ask yourself, are you looking for a girlfriend or a wife? I think they're 2 very different things. The attributes you look for a wife is very different than like, oh, let's just see where this goes. I think going back to the business principle, it's actually similar, which is like, be super pessimistic, and if it still makes sense, do it.
There we go.
As in, like, look at the worst sides of a person and go, okay, are you gonna? Is that fine? Does that work? Because no one's perfect. And the last thing is, top 3 rules for dating is never let go of the person that has 75% of what you want in search for that other 25% in another person, but all they have is that 25%.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people fall for that. I would agree. What is the one thing that you've changed your mind the most on in the last 12 months? You had a super strong opinion and something happened and you've changed. I also have never seen you thinking so deeply before.
Yeah, I want to give you good answers. The issue is there's so many things. I guess maybe it's just that, having a strong opinions on things. Like, listen, I'm still not perfect, but I think as time has gone on, I've just realized, like, you just see so much crazy stuff in the world. And I think actually one of the big things is investing. I was having this conversation just regarding where I'm going to deploy some capital in some more safe, boring stuff. I was talking about the stock market and where I see it. And before, I think I would have been even just a few years ago, I was a lot more opinionated of like, listen, the market is, I'm always a little bit more bearish. I would have been a little bit more opinionated of, oh, the market's overvalued, blah, blah, this is that. And now these days I've just realized, I know fuck all. And I think that's a strong belief that has changed. It's just my tendency in the past to have strong beliefs.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. Listen, Iman, I want to say thank you for coming on. It's been a privilege to know you for the last couple of years and see sort of the journey. This is like maybe the 3rd time we've actually been on a YouTube video. First time, different agencies, different countries. So it's been such a privilege to see you grow and change in the success. And thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.